Hello. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for inviting me back and giving me another opportunity to speak in front of such a wonderful group of people. Yes, as said, my name is David King, and for those of you who have not met me, um, well, that's me, and I am currently self-employed. I'm currently working in a consultancy role, but also just trying to scratch that itch. I think a lot of us get from time to time of trying to make your own game. I've been batting some ideas around for 10, 15 years at this point, and I just really want to say, you know, is there anything there? So I'm going to take the opportunity now to do it. Now, the greatest thing about being self-employed is that you get to do presentation titles like this without having corporate comms telling you you're not allowed to say stuff like that. But during my time, I have been in the games industry for 17 years, and I've been in a leadership capacity for 14 of those years. I've had the great pleasure of working on and shipping 15 titles, including single-player games, multiplayer, RPGs, racing, first-person shooters, sports titles, small teams, large teams, both embedded with the development teams and as part of a large central technology organization. I'm currently enjoying playing Satisfactory and Clear Obscure, and if there's anyone here who worked on those games tonight, I would love to meet you afterwards and shake your hand, because those are spectacular games. But during all of my time working on all of these games, there were a few things that got to me, because I really care about doing things right. And I believe that software made well is the multiplier. It's the force multiplier effect that allows us to make the best games and the games industry to be the best place to be. And there was always two things that really stuck in my mind that really just grated at me whenever I heard them. And it's not just from the projects I worked on, but speaking to other people in other studios who would hear the same things. The first one of these is, that doesn't work in video games. And the second one was, we'll fix that next project. And they always stuck with me. And about 8 or 9 years ago, I got fed up. And I was like, why won't it work in games? Or why do we never fix these things next project? So I started to really look into, what is it about games? What is it about making software that makes doing things like, addressing technical debt or, engaging with software engineering practices? What makes it so hard in games? And in a roundabout way, it introduced me to this creature. Now, does anyone know what this is? Let us shout out. No, it's not a dado. It's a Tasmanian tiger. Although I know there's a few people in here who know this, although I'm not really surprised if most people didn't, because I doubt there's anyone in this room who was alive when this thing last roamed the planet. Unfortunately, the Tasmanian tiger went extinct in 1936. The last example died in captivity in Tasmania. Now, that was very much due to human influence, hunted them really to extinction because they were preying on cattle. But they also went extinct in mainland Australia about 3,500 years ago as well, way before European colonialism got down there. And there's many reasons for this, but one of the biggest reasons that scientists contribute to this is a lack of genetic diversity. Now, when I talk about genetic diversity, what it means is it's the different characteristics, both visible and not visible, that creatures have to be able to adapt to changing environments. Those of you who are unfamiliar with that picture, this is an example. This is known as Darwin's finches. Darwin, when he was coming up with the theory of evolution, he traveled to the Galapagos Islands and noticed just how many different visual characteristics and abilities that these finches had adapted to the different food sources that were available at the time. And the greater the diversity you have, the greater the amount of tools that a species has, is directly correlated to its ability to be able to survive to changing environments. Another example would be what humans have actually been able to do with dogs, training and breeding them in different areas to solve different, to be able to solve different problems and different needs that we have of the working animals. And this is important very much from a species survival perspective, because when you start talking about, massive events that are coming, like huge extinction level events that happen on the planet, which there've been six historically, or we currently believe to be in the sixth or seventh right now, which is human driven. It's not the asteroid impact that wipes out the species that causes the great change. I mean, if you're going to be near the impact point, you're not going to have a great day, but on the other side of the planet, it's not going to be great. But it's the environmental changes that follow and the inability to be able to adapt to that take species out. Drop in the amount of food that is available, a change in the temperatures. That is what really causes these massive changes. And I mean, I don't really want to bring the tone down here, but we do need to be realistic on ourselves. Our asteroid has impacted and our environment is changing. For the first time in over 30 years, the games industry is shrinking. So all of the numbers I'm going to put on this slide are from an absolutely excellent presentation, which Matthew Ball did, called The State of Video Gaming in 2025. Links at the bottom. Highly recommend reading it. But if you have a look at the numbers, and these are all inflation adjusted to 2024 dollars, the games industry has spent 30 years continuously growing. Between 1990 and 2011, it grew on average about 4.5% per year. From 2011 to 2021, it grew almost 10% per year. And to put that in perspective, that's over triple real GDP growth. So games massively outstripped, like the whole world. But from 2021, things changed. And for the last 3 years, the industry has been shrinking by about 4% per year. And if you actually extend that out to what the investment and what the growth curve would have expected, we're about 20 to 25% below where we projected we'd be at this time. So there's significantly less money there than there ever has been before. And people are spending less on games. So this is from an article in the Wall Street Journal called Young Americans Cut Back, which shows that of under 25s, video games are by far the hardest hit discretionary spending category that is happening in America right now. And this is a problem. I mean, quite obviously, this is a problem, but this is an even bigger problem, I would say, for the games industry, because the real difficulty here is we've been living in a land of plenty, and it's not there anymore. Growth hides problems in process and the way that we do things. And we all know this because video games are a very special, very unique industry. We're very hit driven, very results focused. Most of the core metrics that we care about are commercial and critical. Is your game popular and does it sell well? And I'd say, sorry, yeah. Like this time and this this plenty that we've had has allowed us to continue to make games and continue to drive successes in some of the great games that we make, but it's been a lot easier to succeed because the games industry has been growing so fast that we would probably be successful regardless of how we did it. And that has allowed, I would say, inefficient processes to just kind of creep in. And this works. You can continue to do it. I imagine everyone in this room has had a conversation or been part of the conversation, either the giver or the person receiving it, with someone probably in technology saying, this is unsustainable. We can't do it this way. We can't continue to do this. And it's just turned out not to be. And that's fine. You can do that when things grow. But it becomes a lot harder to do that once the growth stops. So then we think, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to respond to this? And then, what Johan was talking about with the impossible triangle earlier, what do we do next? Do we compromise on cost, quality, the speed or the time in which we do things? Do we go down the route where we think, oh no, do I need to compromise on my creative vision of what I have to be able to appeal to a greater audience that we can still afford to make the games that we have? And now I don't want this to be an entirely depressing presentation, but I think that we don't actually have to do a lot of this stuff. What I would argue for is maybe we should have a look at the how we make games and seeing where have we become fat and lazy, for lack of a better term, and can we make games? Can we make software better? Because games, even though they are an art form, are still ultimately software. And the great news in this case is that yes, we can. There is an absolute ton of literature and other industries that are doing much the same thing we are, but with a different objective. And if you look out there, literature exists for every team size, every single development methodology that you would want to do, how to solve and how to like address most problems that you may face. The real important thing, like us as leaders, is identifying where our problem spaces are and how we can find the literature to be able to address some of these things. Now, it's very easy for me to say we should all just learn from other industries and just, expect you to do it. But I want to show you kind of what this looks like in practice because we did it with our team. So this is a real photo, or at least like a picture of a real award that the DD and or Scrum Master for my old team gave to the team at the end of the 0% completion sprint, that mythical sprint where just absolutely nothing got done. It was very much like gallows humor of a team that really was not in a good state to try and keep them together. And I mean, it worked. The team, just kind of got together and were trying to go through hard times, but it was not a good place that they were in. The team was massively overcommitted and under-resourced for what it was that they were needing to do. They were absolutely buried under technical debt and legacy bugs. The reason they didn't get anything done that sprint was because they were just fixing critical bugs that all of the customers were shouting them about. Their release schedule took over 2 weeks of manual testing. And then if a bug happened, they had to, or at least a unshippable bug happened, they had to reset. And they just couldn't move anywhere. The team was depressed. There's 72% employee satisfaction, which is well below the company average. And really importantly, critical talent were actively seeking other roles, both within the company and outside of the company. And no one trusted them. I was a person who was using this team. I didn't trust them. Does this sound familiar at all? But then I had the opportunity, and I was getting frustrated with, we can't do these things in games. We should be doing something better. I had the opportunity to take over this team, and I said I would do it, but only if we could actually start implementing some of the ways that you should be making software, some of the ways the literature said. And we used all of these books here. These are all fantastic reads, Crucial Conversations, Team Topologies more recently. Working Effectively with Legacy Code starts talking about how you can start addressing technical debt, and Clean Code for how to actually start making things in a more scalable and sustainable fashion. And yeah, this is it. We identified the problems that we had, surgically targeted the best practice. We split up the team in areas, giving them autonomy, giving them trust to actually address these issues. We measured the progress, reevaluated at every given point, making sure we're going in the right direction. We reserved time for innovation of the products, fostered a psychologically safe environment. But this is also the really critical bit, and the major thing that most people say, oh, you can't do this when you talk about starting to address technical debt. So we continued to deliver, continued to push things out, but reserve some times to actually start addressing the problems that were ailing the team. And you're never going to guess. It turns out that stuff all works really, really well. The team, after 18 months, managed to reduce the release speed from 2 weeks to 5 minutes, entirely automated. It was significantly more predictable. Instead of just releases coming whenever, greater than 50% of the releases came early, and fewer than 5% of them were ever late due to unexpected bugs. Escape bugs went from about 20 per release down to less than 1, and there was a massive increase in user satisfaction. And I think one of the things I love, one of the team members said later when we asked them, would you do this again? And they said, it used to be that the time after releases was the worst. So many critical fixes and lots of long days. Releases are now non-events, and it's great. And that was shown in the employee satisfaction, which went to 96%, which was company leading. We went from a team where everyone was trying to leave to every single time we had a role, we were inundated by internal applications for transfer. So coming towards the end, I'm just going to we're in a bad environment, and survival does require adaptation. Brute force and just, let's get stuff done. Let's just, hope things will come together at the end. Thank you for that one, Johan. Is really difficult to sustain in an environment like this. So I highly recommend that we as leaders in the industry, we focus on the how. How do we make games? look at and learn from other industries. And again, like going back to what Johan said about learning at H&M and how differently other non-games industries do things, I think there's a lot that we could learn from them. But then also critically, please share your successes. Please start, like, let's talk a lot more about like how we make a game and not just like what it is that we make. Because evolution is a team game. Even if you have these tools, these resources, they don't guarantee your success. They just make it more likely that you will. And then, I mean, one of the things I've noticed both from the networking event and from what we've seen tonight is there are so many people and so many companies here that I have worked with previously, my previous employer. So the more things we learn and the more tools that we get, the more likely that we as a group are going to be able to level up and survive. And then ultimately, if we're not wasting time, brute forcing our way through development problems, getting stuck behind, crashes, unstable builds, inefficient processes, we will have more time and more bandwidth to focus the innovation on the important stuff for your games, which is the thing that makes you truly unique, which makes your product stand out in front of everyone else, and will give you a greater chance of surviving the environment that we find ourselves in. So with that, thank you for letting me talk about that. Good luck, and I look forward to talking to you.